still stay with the nominations and, of course, vetting, because a lot of issues have come around the gender balance as well as the regional balance among all of that. Let's start with the gender balance, for example, and let's give you some statistics around the gender balance. Now, so far as we are concerned, currently, there's a total of 7 people that have been chosen by President John Mahama in terms of the substantive minister proper. So you have Elizabeth Ofosu-Adjare, who is the MP for Techima North. She has been given the position of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, of course, designate to be vetted and approved. And then Agnes Na Momolate, MP for Krowo. She's also one of the 7 people chosen in terms of the gender balance and women. She is Minister Designate for Gender, Children and Social Protection. Also, the Minister Designate for Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts, Abla Jifa Gomashi, MP for Ketu South, also one of 7 women chosen. Emilia Arthur, MP for Shama, also one of 7 women chosen. And then we have Linda Oklu, who is the Greater Accra Regional Minister Designate. And then Rita Akosia Ajay Awate, Eastern Regional Minister Designate, as well as Charity Gardner, who is the Afro Regional Minister Designate. So in total, we have 7 female and 35 male representation from the current ministers nominated by the president, coming up to 16.7% female representation and as many as 83.3% representation in terms of the male numbers that we have. So this is what we have in terms of what President Mahama has presented. Now, many women, especially advocates, are not happy with the numbers we're seeing on your screens. Some of them have been speaking to us on that. Let's hear what some of them have been saying with regards to the president's nominations.
The law was passed for a purpose. It was passed because it was realized that we don't have that many women in leadership, even though women are the majority in our population. So the idea of this law is to put a structure in place to ensure that we have more and more women represented at the highest decision-making level. That is where the table is, where they take the decisions which affect all of us.
We are calling on the president and we are saying, the women do not want piecemeal. We know what stuff we are made of. We know the expertise we are bringing to the table. And so give us the opportunity to be able to, exhibit that expertise.
I must say, we are still hopeful because deputy ministers will be appointed later. Although that doesn't, we wanted, cabinet and main ministerial positions.
And indeed, it's not just these women advocates who have spoken against the number of women we're seeing as presented by the president, but the minority leader, the Honorable Afenyo Makin, also raised some concerns on the floor of Parliament today.
We have passed the affirmative action law, and of all these hard-working women, only a few of them have so far been given substantive ministerial appointments. Is it the case that they are matching them for deputy ministerial appointments?
So let's get some answers on this and the many other things we've seen last week, this week around the nominations as presented by the president. We've been joined on the line by the president's acting spokesperson, Felix Ofosu-Adjare, to give us some details. Felix, if you can hear me, welcome to Channel One Newsroom.
Thank you very much.
Now, so far, by our count, the president has made some 42 ministerial nominations so far. He said he will do a maximum of 60 ministers. When should we expect to get the rest of the 18 positions left to be announced?
Well, ideally, the president has to consult substantive ministers before appointing deputy ministers. So it stands to reason that the ministers he has nominated will be vetted and approved and inducted into office before the president can engage them on discussions about who to nominate as deputy minister. So I think it is fairly reasonable to expect that the deputy ministerial list will come out sometime after. It is also entirely possible that the president may engage in consultations with them even as they remain nominees, so that it can be fast-tracked. But give and take, by the time that person is over and the minister takes office, we should have the deputy ministerial list.
Right. Now, let's look at regional balance and ethnicity. The minority, for example, has raised concerns about a lack of regional balance in his appointments. Now, what is your official response from the president regarding this issue?
Well, I do not know the basis upon which the minority makes the claim of a lack of regional balance, because I was saying that these nations are fairly balanced. If you look at the total, I have to have one minister. Ashanti has two. Bono has one. Bono East has two. Central Region has two. Eastern Region has two. Greater Accra has two. Northeast has one. Northern Region has two. OT has one. Savannah has one. Upper East one. Upper West one. Water has three nominees. Western Region has two. And Western North has one. This is fairly balanced. I do not believe that the argument is that all regions must have an equal number of people in government before you can achieve the balance. I think balance also has to do with proportionality. You look at the size of the population and compare it to the number of speakers we have, and you find that it is fairly proportional. And in that regard, I do not believe that an argument that there has not been regional balance in these populations can stand truthfully.
Right. We're seeing agitations already over some, youth in some areas who are not happy with the lack of inclusion of their indigents in the list. For example, if you go to Bole Bamboy today, earlier in the hours of today, the youth took to the street burning ties over the president's failure to add their MP to the list of cabinet ministers. What's the reaction to that?
Well, it is unfortunate, even though one can understand that in these matters, sometimes emotions born out of perceived disappointment can get the better of people who desire to see their sons and daughters occupy a certain position. I must indicate that the things that need to be balanced go beyond region. Even ethnic or tribal and gender balance are to be considered. And therefore, all these factors come to play in the choice that the president makes. We also have to bear in mind that the president made a firm commitment, a justifiable commitment, to reduce the government to reduce the size of government, the size of government, bearing in mind what had happened under the previous government, where the need to appoint ministers or the power to appoint ministers was abused to open the floodgate for any and everybody in the MPP to become a minister at the expense of the public press, at the expense of the taxpayer. President Mahama is keen to avoid that. So naturally, there's going to be a limitation of space for people who want to get to government. And therefore, it is always going to be the case that some may get the opportunity to serve while some may not have a similar opportunity. But all said and done, I think that the Bole constituents is perhaps overlooking the fact that the president himself comes from there. They have actually landed the ultimate guidance. The biggest position there is in government is occupied by their son in the shape of President John Dramani Mahama. I'm sure the president would have wished that there was more space to accommodate many more of his compatriots. But the reality is that there's only so many people that the president can appoint, and he has done so having regard for all the parameters that need to be met and all the factors that need to be taken into consideration to achieve the right balance, which goes beyond just where or which region one comes from.
So what would you say to the youth who claim that they were promised, that position in cabinet? What would you tell them this evening as they listen to you?
I'm not privy to any such promise. But whatever it is, I will urge you straight. I will urge them to become. There are many other opportunities for inclusion of their member of parliament who has worked very, very hard since he came to Parliament and has contributed in immense way to the sustenance of the NDC in Bole, in the Savannah region, and in Ghana as a whole. He has been quite prominent in Parliament and helped the NDC's cause. So if he gets some appointments in government, it will be well deserved. He would have earned it purely based on merit. Except that, as I indicated, the circumstances at hand have not made it possible at the moment. But there is still room for other forms of appointment that go beyond ministerial positions to be made. And I am confident that he would be considered for one such position if the president deems it necessary.
Right. Now, still on assurances, the president has been very vocal about his commitment to increasing women representation in government. However, it appears that the numbers we've seen so far, what he has announced in terms of women representation for substantive ministerial positions, the numbers are not looking too good. What are the plans to increase the numbers in terms of cabinet positions and prominent positions?
President Mahama remains committed to gender inclusion and the inclusion of all sections of society in the government. He is committed to that. But I think that we need to broaden the discussion a bit. It appears that the focus is on ministerial, substantive ministerial nominations. But so far, President Mahama has made 75 appointments into various positions, some in government, some temporary committees working on various matters. If we put all of this together, it amounts to 75. That is, it includes the members of the committee, various committees, and people in the state-owned enterprises, and people who work in the office of the president who are not ministers. If we put all of this together, it comes to 75. 20 out of these, which represent 27%, are women, and 55, representing 73%, are men. Now, bear in mind also that President Mahama actually promised that 30% of appointees in the government, and government goes beyond ministers, would be women. In fact, if you drill down further and did deeper analysis, you will find that in the office of the president, for instance, out of 16 appointments that have been made, 7 of them are women, which represents 44%, and 9 of them are men, which represents 56%. If you come to the state-owned enterprise, where 9 appointments have been made so far, 3 of them are women, representing 33%, and 6 of them are men. If you take the Constitution Review Commission, for instance, 8 people were appointed to the committee. 3 of them are women, 5 of them are men. So if you put all of it together, it shows a certain commitment towards achieving the objective of having a significant number of women in government. So far, if you put everything together, we are 20%, which is not too far away from the target that President Mahama set. I'm confident that by the time that the 18 deputy ministerial slots are filled, we would move much closer to the figure that we have currently, even though we appreciate the concerns that are being raised. It is also important to appreciate that to pick anybody, either man or woman, you are going to have to do so from a pool. So it depends on the pool of people who are available at any point in time. But I am sure that eventually we will get to a point where there will be sufficient numbers of women in government so that they can also contribute to the data towards national development.
So we see some very interesting positions, in the lineup of what we have. One is like special initiatives. What kind of role will this position entail?
There are many things that must be done, which necessarily do not fall under specific sector ministry or ministry. There are some ad hoc measures that need to be taken. There are some things that come up that require attention at the ministerial level, which offers a high profile so that the needed focus can be had. And in those instances, you will need a point person of sufficient rank in government to take charge and ensure its execution. So these sort of activities that will be handled by the Minister of State in charge of special initiatives.
Right. Then we're seeing climate standing on its own. You would think that it should have gone under environment. What's the thinking behind that, and what are we hoping to achieve with that?
The environment also encompasses the climate, and I'm sure they have any number of personnel working on it. But you notice that these days climate change is high on the agenda. And this has engaged the attention of high-profile leaders around the world. Ghana is a member of the international community. Ghana is part of the world. And for that reason, we also have to pay much more attention to climate change and do things that will ensure that we minimize the impact or adverse effects of climate change. So the minister who has been appointed, Honorable Isifu, has significant expertise in the area and is able to bring his experience and expertise to bear on the sort of quality of advice that the president must receive to guide policy formulation. So he will play an important role in conjunction with other stakeholders within the larger environment sector to achieve the objectives that the president has set.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, acting spokesperson for the President John Mahama. Thank you very much for your time. We'll still stay with the